What's going on, y'all? I just got back from my first run in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5s. I just ran 9 miles in them, was supposed to be 10, but didn't make it to 10. And let's talk about my first impressions from my first run in Saucony's most popular plated speed trainer. So as always, we are going to start off with the outsole of the shoe. So this year, actually, Saucony made an interesting update to the outsole when it comes to pattern. I've never seen this type of pattern on a Saucony running shoe before. Let me know if you guys have in the comment section down below. But essentially, it's just a pretty standard rubber outsole. As you can see, the white part is part of the midsole and the foam material, and then the blue rubber pieces are the more durable and sticky rubber pieces. I don't exactly know what type of rubber compound Saucony uses. I don't know if they named anything, kind of like Adidas Continental Rubber or Puma Grip. But on my first run on asphalt in pretty sunny weather conditions, these were sticking like glue to the ground. I think that traction is going to be really good. I don't exactly know if there's going to be any rain that I can test this shoe in for traction purposes, but when you're on the road in sunny weather conditions, I think that this traction pattern and the rubber compound use is going to be really sticky, because that's what I experienced on my first run in the shoe, making quick cuts, doing turns, doing turnarounds. I felt like the traction on this shoe was really, really good. So hopefully that holds up as I put more miles on the shoe. As for durability, I'm not even going to talk about durability since I only ran 9 miles in this shoe. So there's that. But I do think that this year, the outsole, from just like a looks wise, it looks really thin. So I don't exactly know if maybe some of the blue outsole is encased within the foam, so that's why it looks thin, or it actually just is pretty thin. And typically Saucony's outsoles, for me personally, have lasted a little bit more on the longer side, and I think they are above average in durability, but who knows? Since they may have thinned the outsole on the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5s, the outsole might not be as durable as maybe past models. So that's all I have for the first run review of the outsole. Let's move on to my favorite part, which is the cushion setup of the Endorphin Speed 5s. So the cushion on the Endorphin Speed 5s are a full-length Power Run PB with that winged nylon plate. I don't think this setup has changed in a while for the Endorphin Speed line. I've ran and I've had the Endorphin Speed 4s, and I also have the Endorphin Speed 3s. When I put this shoe on my feet, I feel like it's very similar to the Endorphin Speed 3s just as a shoe in general. The shoe feels very lightweight. It feels a little bit minimal and low to the ground, and that bouncy Power Run PB foam underfoot doesn't feel too high and it doesn't feel too low. It feels like very responsive, and it feels a little bit more on the firm side. So how did the shoe perform from a midsole perspective on the 9-mile run? I was running a little bit more on the easy side of things, and then as the run progressed, I slowly started dropping the pace down a little bit just to see how the shoe would react. And honestly, at first I thought that the setup felt very, very firm, but as I guess the weather started to heat up, as I started to warm up, and I started putting a little bit more into the shoe, I did get that slight bounce that, Saucony, in my opinion, is kind of known for with their foams. So that's always a nice thing. As for the winged nylon plate, I didn't really feel it too much. Like, it didn't feel like it made the shoe super stiff or anything, but you can definitely tell that it's a little bit stiffer than a normal non-plated daily trainer. So it is there, and it is helping push you a little bit. I didn't really run fast just yet in this shoe, and I know that it literally has speed in the name, so I will be putting a little bit more tempo runs into the shoe to let you guys know how it fares with faster paces. But overall, I felt very protected on my 9-mile run. The reason I couldn't finish my 10-mile run today was not because of the shoes. The shoes did great. It was because of me. I had a little bit of a code brown situation, so I couldn't finish my 10-mile run, but I almost got there. I got to 9 miles, and so I'm excited to put more long runs into this cushion setup. I think that it does have potential, but it does feel a little bit more minimal, I guess, than the shoes that I've been wearing. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do like 18-mile runs or 20-mile runs in this shoe for me specifically, but I do think that it's going to be great at that half marathon distance to below, as well as on faster pace runs, which I think is what the shoe's designed for. Moving on to the upper of the Endorphin Speed 5s, as well as the fit. The upper, I think that from a design point of view, as well as from a materials point of view, I really love the upper. It's a very, very lightweight mesh that's pretty thin in my opinion, and you can see a lot of perforations throughout the shoe, giving it that breathability that some people really need. And I will always take breathability when there is breathability, as summer is coming up and I don't want my toes to get too hot. So I do like that the upper feels very lightweight, very minimal, and there is a lot of breathability in the shoe. Now for structure and feel on foot though, I don't think that this is the softest mesh because it did feel a little bit more plasticky, especially on my first run. Maybe I need to break in the upper a little bit, which I think after I break in the upper a little bit and heat up the materials, it will probably start conforming more to my foot. But it did feel a little bit plasticky, but I think once I break them in, they'll be a lot more comfortable. As for the fit in the heel, as well as just the materials used, it is very minimal. I wish that the tongue, it is a gusseted tongue by the way, I wish that the tongue was a little bit longer, because when I did do the runner's loop on my left shoe just to test it out, I felt like there wasn't enough tongue to kind of keep the laces from biting into my ankle, but that feeling only lasted for maybe a mile or two, and then I think my body kind of got used to the setup, and then I didn't feel the laces biting in too much. As well as the heel counter is pretty minimal. I think the shoe in general just feels a little bit flimsy, and I don't want to use the word cheap because I know that Saucony probably used these materials to make the shoe lighter, which kind of adds to the feel of the shoe. But overall, it does feel like it is a flimsier model. So if you're looking for a lot of support from an upper and you want to feel really locked in, I don't exactly know if this is the shoe for you, but if you do run in humid or very hot conditions and you're okay with a more minimal setup on the upper, I think that this shoe is going to do really well for you. Now, as for fit, I went true to size. I have a slightly wider than average foot, a size 12 at that, and I did get that size 12 regular in this Saucony Endorphin Speed 5, and I thought that it fit my foot really, really well. Now, I do want to touch upon the runner's loop versus the non-runner's loop. When I didn't do the runner's loop, I did feel like my heel was locked in around 80%. It could be a little bit better, but when I did do the runner's loop, I felt like I was fully locked into the shoe, and it gave me that fit that I really like. I just had a little bit of problem with the tongue not being long enough, and maybe my ankles get embedded into by the laces just a little bit. But that also, like I said, went away after a couple miles. So overall, I think that the fit and the upper, true to size, I think I'm gonna see how this upper breaks in the more miles I put in them, and hopefully they will kind of mesh into my foot or will kind of mold to my feet to make them even more comfortable. But I really like the minimal setup. It's really breathable, really lightweight, and I think it just does the job for support, at least for me. So overall, my first run in the Endorphin Speed 5s, I thought it was a good shoe. I don't know if it's a great shoe just yet. I do want to keep testing the upper to see if it breaks in. I do want to see how the cushion holds up on a little bit longer runs, as well as the durability of the outsole. There's just a couple unknowns on the shoe that I think could keep it from being a very great option for a lot of people. This is, especially with the price in mind, $175. They raised it $5 from last year. And in that price range, there is one of my favorite plated daily trainers, which is the Nike Zoom Fly 6, which I will definitely be comparing to this shoe. So I'm curious to see which one of those two shoes will come up on top for a comparison video in the future. But I did really enjoy my first run in the shoe. I just thought that it felt a little bit firm from the cushion setup, but it did feel a little bit bouncy or a little bit poppy at the end, as well as when I picked up the pace. I do like that it is very lightweight as well. It feels like kind of like you're wearing nothing, but I think that that could also be a drawback for people who might need a little bit more support in their speed shoes. So with all that being said, I think that I do definitely need to put in more miles in this shoe, but I'm really excited to continue testing this shoe and maybe throw some faster paces at it. So stay tuned for the full review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.